aren't playing. That's right. I was going to say maybe they would be playing.
Yep.
That's interesting to hear. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Brown and Brown.
We're already deep in thought over here, guys.
Yeah, we were actually, as we were coming on air, we were talking about the impact of Caitlin Clark and the fact that the ticket sales for the biggest game that they had last year, which was Fever Sky, went down the drain as soon as she got her injury, and she will be out. That is telling you how powerful this whole Caitlin Clark craze. C-squared, I give it to you. WNBA, pay attention.
Yeah, people talk about like the face of sports, and I'm sorry, but Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA, regardless of old guard, new guard, whatever you want to talk about. She's what's bringing people to the gate, young and old, every walk of life. Everybody's there to see the phenomenon, and when she's not playing, hey, you can see the ticket sales plummet.
Plummet. And they have. And the funny thing is, and I get it, and it's in every league. It's in even the sororities, whatever, fraternities. You come in, you're the new person. They haze you, right? They give you a hard time. They don't necessarily support you like they would if you were a vet. I know this is just her second year, but I had just a message to all of you guys. Asia, all you guys. You guys are great. You are the ones who made the league. But if you want to get paid like you want to get paid, you might want to support Caitlin Clark, because the more she is in the league, the more she is playing, the more she is able to showcase her talents, the more money you guys make. It's sort of like the Tiger Woods effect. It was like the Michael Jordan effect. It's like all of these great stars got more money for the people after them. So you might want to heed that and be, in line with that if you guys really want to get paid, which I think you should, and you want to get people to support your product.
And props not just to the Caitlin Clark clamp, but honestly, the Indiana Fever have done a brilliant masterclass in marketing, not just Caitlin Clark, but all their players. Look at Sophie Cunningham. I mean, yeah, she's a looker, don't get me wrong, but they have marketed the hell out of that piece. and more importantly, their franchise. They made every game a home game. That's their mantra this year. Think about that.
And that's true. People are coming to see them no matter where it is within our nation. People are coming out to see them. Again, that should speak volumes to how the WNBA should be marketing all of the newer players, and also maybe having those side conversations with the older players to get on board. Because if the older players, and I get it, you get the shoulder, you get to this, but if they end up causing an injury because they're overdoing what they're trying to show Caitlin Clark, like you still have to earn your praise and all of that stuff with us, might hurt your pocket.
Yep. No, and I'm not saying, by any means, we're not saying like, hey, protect the stars, all that stuff, because I know that happens in sports too. Like,
Yeah, I don't want everything's a foul either. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah. We're saying basically it's a great competitive sport. It needs to stay that way, but then importantly, showcase your stars, work the magic that you can with the people that have the star power and the credibility because of their talent set, because of their looks, because of everything, honestly. And I'm not trying to be superficial, but that's just the truth of sports. You work that angle. There was a point in time, think about this for a second. Serena Williams won 23 titles. But if there was a point in time where Maria Sharapova was the highest paid woman in sports because.
Yes.
Yeah. Just because.
And again, that shouldn't work that way. You should make sure that your cash cow is getting fed. All right.
Yes. Now, that said, transitioning to the world of tennis. We have the French Open going on, and yes, this is a nice year for the French Open, and more importantly for the American squads, both on the men's and the women's side. Now, the women's side was kind of expected. You've got Coco Gauff as a 2 seed. She's playing like a champion right now. She just won again this morning, I believe, so she's walking into the quarters again.
She did.
And solid. Miss Pegula is actually battling as we speak. I'm looking at the scoreboard now. She's in the third set. And again, yet another contender. We've got plenty of contenders. Madison Keys. Now, Madison Keys wins. Set up that showdown with Coco, which is going to be great to watch, obviously. Epic television. Maddie's coming off a hell of a run at the Australian Open, and it was overdue for the talent that she's had and the success she's had in her career. It's awesome to see that now at her later stages of her career, as I like to say it, age 28, 29. Now, women's side, like I said, not unexpected that all the American women are contending. The men's side, on the other hand, I am very impressed by so far. Not to say that we are in a new era of American tennis yet, because I think we're still far away. But Tommy Paul doing his thing. I love it. I mean, the guy's kind of under
Yep.
the radar a little bit compared to a couple of the other guys, but he's doing great right now. He's in for a tough matchup with Alcaraz next round. Alcaraz, who just dispatched, literally crushed
Shelton.
Mr. Shelton, and
Yep.
expectedly so. I hate to say it, but Mr. Shelton's got one-dimensional game, and until he can become a little bit more multi-dimensional, he can't compete against the international stars, the Alcaraz of the world, the Sinners of the world, things of that nature.
And that's who you got to beat to win titles.
Yeah, and you got to win. Yeah, you got to do that to win titles. Now, same thing with Tommy Paul. I think is I'm going to say this very controversially. I think he's the most dynamic of the American players right now because he can play multiple games. Francis Tiafoe is a power game, and again, Tiafoe, another guy, hasn't surrendered a set, walking into the French quarters right now, which is impressive.
Yeah, but who has he played up to this point?
Yeah, who has he played? And then honestly, he's a one-dimensional guy again. You know, he's all hitter, all everything else. He's built for hard courts. That's how he trained here in DC. And everybody kind of knows his story coming up from, started from the bottom, now we're here kind of thing, which is great.
Yep.
But again, American tennis is still kind of in this mediocre stage, in my opinion, in terms of men's tennis, where you don't have that star power guy that can dominate on the international level because of the lack of talent and multidimensionality of the players that exist today right now.
Well, you just don't hear enough of these names making the key tournaments. They're not making it to the semis. They're not making it to the finals. And only then are you able to really market someone. Unless you had like a pretty boy Andre Agassi that you could market right off. But, other than that, you got to have success. And the men's game hasn't had that.
Yep.
U.S. men's game.
Yep. Agreed. So no, and that's the thing. Like, it'll be interesting to see how the matches favor out. But at the end of the day, it's a 2-horse race. You got Sinner and you got Alcaraz. And technically, Alcaraz has Sinner's number, which is kind of funny. But then everybody else is somehow able to beat Alcaraz on any given time and day. But Alcaraz has the magic bullet against Sinner, which is interesting.
Well, what happened to Joker? Is he still in the tournament?
I believe Joker's still around. I think he's in the
top. He was. It's just funny that you didn't mention his name.
I mean, he's a given, right? He's a given every year. We know he's going to always contend. So don't get me wrong. I'm not going to ever discredit Joker. Does he have what it takes to take out the big dogs, meaning Sinner and Alcaraz? And I don't know until we see it on court, and it's going to happen in the semis potentially. We don't know. He plays Cam Norrie next in the 4th round. Joker does. Cam Norrie's been playing well, but I think he'll dispatch Cam Norrie, long or short of it. Not a problem there. Zverev is also on a pretty good run right now, the German. And again, he's always contended well at the French Open and all that. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the other outside guy that, again, one-dimensional player, but honestly has been playing ridiculously well with the power he has, is Jack Draper from Britain. He's got a killer serve.
I saw a match of his. He actually looks like he has the tools.
He has the tools. So I like him as an outside dark horse for some of it. But yeah, I mean, Joker, Sinner, Alcaraz, outside of that, maybe Zverev, but it's going to be a crapshoot. It's in the French Open's interesting because it's a grind, as I've always talked about in the media and everything else. It is a challenge for any sporting event because of how tough it is energy-wise on you for the 2 weeks that you have to play. The way you play on dirt is a little different than every other sport at the end of the day and every other surface.
That's why it's a little surprising to see TFO actually do well at the French Open. If you're a hardcore player, isn't that the opposite of a court player?
It is. It's very surprising to see him do well at the French Open. So, like I said, we'll see how he kind of fares at this point. But yeah, I as much as the Americans have done well to get to the quarters, I don't see them going past that at this point.
I don't either. I don't either. And it's baby steps. It's like how Jordan had to, build up his skill set and his ability to overcome. And these guys aren't there yet. They just aren't.
Yeah. This is not the era, as I like to say. We were fortunate, I think, you and I, to have seen Sampras, Agassi, Courier, Todd Martin, Michael Chang. I mean, that 5 horsemen, and then there was others too. Don't get me wrong, I'm shortchanging here, but
sure,
all those American generation was unreal, and it'll never be matched in my opinion because of the very talent that existed.
Well, and actually, just a side note, not American, but they had Mats Wilander there too. Watching one of the matches. I mean, if you think about it, the era that we were in, and people might say the Billie Jean King era, or the era prior, and I grew up with the Connors, McEnroe, Lindell, Nastasi, players like that. I have to say that era that you just mentioned was probably one of the best ever in tennis.
Oh yeah, hands down. Hands down. I mean, think about the competitiveness. You had Lendl, you had Edberg, you had Becker. I mean, the list goes on and on in that generation. It's ridiculous.
You mentioned Stefan Edberg,
Raptor that made a hell of a run at Wimbledon a couple times.
Right.
I mean, there was some Gustavo Kuerten, who's the king of clay at one point.
Yeah.
The one guy that gets forgotten, and you'll appreciate this being German-Austrian, Thomas Muster. The man
Remember
at one point
Thomas
had
Muster?
80 or 90 matches on clay at once.
Yes, he was very good. Again, you just had that. And I also felt like you had enough, not parity, but at least you felt like there was competition. I feel like at this point, what we've seen the last, decade and a half, 2 decades of tennis, it's been Federer, Nadal, Joker, and what?
Yeah, Andy Murray in a flash in the pan, and that's about it.
I'm sorry.
As much as people give him Andy Murray credit, I'm sorry, but I don't give him as much credit because I actually think the other guy that should be part of that conversation that isn't is Stanislas Wawrinka. Because Stan beat the guys. Stan beat those dudes.
He did.
Yeah.
But how long did he maintain that? That wasn't a standard. That was
he
a
didn't
thing.
maintain long enough. These guys have been 25 years, like you said.
But Andy Murray didn't do that at all. Yeah, but Andy Murray didn't do that at all. He was always the other guy.
He was the fourth horseman, basically, and always the fourth because he could never beat the other three. Whereas Wawrinka had to live in Roger Federer's shadow at being Swiss.
Yeah.
And still beat those dudes. He beat Nadal on clay. He beat Joker. Like, he did the dragon slaying, if you think about it.
I agree.
So I give him credit, for as long as he lasted. Yeah, injuries kind of derailed the tail end of his career, but I mean, dude was a baller at the end of the day.
He was in there for a minute. Yeah, he was holding his own.
Yep. So
I know we only have a little bit of time. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to touch upon, one other thing before we get to basketball and some of those sports and hockey, is Scheffler, is he as great during his time as Tiger Woods was during his time and Jack Nicklaus was during his time?
Give me another year's worth of this reign. That's what I'm going to say. Because for those guys, it was duration. Tiger had, a 10-year streak of being the most feared competitor in golf. Scottie Scheffler's on a 2 or 3 year run right now where it's been unbelievable to watch. And honestly, the dude, I think yesterday, I forgot which commentator said it, they called him the Mariano Rivera of golf right now because the dude can close on Sundays. There is no question.
Oh, yeah, he can. Yeah, he can. I'll give him that. He doesn't have to be in the lead to win. He can come back from 4 down and win, too.
You put him in the top 5 walking into Sunday, you have a fear factor going because the dude's going to finish strong and he's going to finish hard. You just know it's going to happen.
Well, and I don't know his exact win percentage, but I did look at it a while ago. He was at a win percentage like Tiger Woods, or even better. Like, Tiger used to win every one tournament every 4 times he went out, if not more. It was like he was winning 20-30% of his tournaments, and even for a while he was winning higher than that. And I feel like Scottie has that ability, and it's shown that over a period of time where he can literally win every tournament he enters.
Yes, no, I agree, and that's where you give it a little bit more longevity, and I'll put them in. I'll put them in that upper echelon conversation with the Jacks and the Tigers. But for me, still it is, and this might be controversial. But I'm going to go Jack, Tiger, and then Scottie right now, because Jack obviously more majors than anyone. Tiger couldn't catch it, still can't, and I don't think he ever will at this point.
No, he's done.
And what Jack did was just phenomenal and unreal. And Tiger, for the reign that he had and against the competition he had, you can't doubt the success, obviously.
And he was dominant. He was scaring people. Yeah, he was scaring people. I don't feel like everybody's totally scared of Scheffler at this point. Like there were times, just like a boxer like Mike Tyson, where Jack or Tiger entered the tournament. If they were just near the scoreboard, people would crumble. They would crumble just because of the fear of.
Just the name on a board would, frighten people. Exactly.
Yep.
And that's where, like, Scottie's always going to be the feared factor going into a Sunday. But once he gets to become that Thursday guy where you see the name and you're like, all right, this tournament's over, That's where I'm going to give him that credence.
Yep, agree with that.
So no,
All right,
hell
what
of
do
a
we got?
run.
What else do we got on tap?
The NBA Finals, baby. They kick off later this week. And, we've got Oklahoma City against Indiana Pacers. I think you and I have called this, from the beginning of, what was there, from the contention. I think it's Oklahoma City in 5. I'll keep it simple.
Yeah, I was really hoping that New York and Minnesota could muster the strength to beat these teams just because of the dynamic of them trading players back and forth and both of them being successful. I totally agree. I don't know if there's going to be much of a conversation. SGA and Holmgren and Williams and their defense,
just
which people
that
overlook. Yeah, I think that is just going to be way too much for Indiana. I see that New York was able to do that to them a couple of games. Halliburton, if Halliburton doesn't score 20, 30 points, I think they can't win. And we saw what Oklahoma City did to Ant-Man, who's supposed to be the next face of the NBA. Yeah. Did you even hear about him any game? Did he do anything the whole series?
And that's the thing. I mean, they rotated players and shut him down, and they did it with the 6th man at times. They brought in Caruso and said, "You take him."
And I think that Halliburton's going to get the same dose. And unlike the other teams who refuse to do it, I think that Oklahoma City will double team Halliburton and will get him off his marks and will make him force him to make turnovers. Other teams didn't seem to get that, to do that to Oklahoma City. And I think if Indiana doesn't do that to Oklahoma City, they're going to get blown out, because you're not going to stop SGA one-on-one. You just aren't.
You can't stop SGA one-on-one. They've got too many other horses in that stable, and frankly, they're too deep. I mean, you take one guy out and gets into foul trouble in the starting 5, they'll bring in another guy off the bench, and he'll be just as good on Halliburton to block him out. I mean, it's scary how deep this OKC team is. It almost puts me akin defensively. Do you remember the Pistons a while back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That defensive squad, they had Ben Wallace and the boys. Like,
Ben Wallace,
that's how much of a defense this is with OKC, except deeper. That's what seems scary.
and OKC, I mean, I was watching something last night, the night before, where they talked about how the owner built this team, how he went back through, or the GM went through the Durant phase, built that team up, and he talked about how they traded off pieces like the Lewis and who was the other guy who was really good at the time on Seattle. But they talked about how they traded them, how they got the draft picks, and then they show what they have as draft picks going forward. And it's like, hold on, Oklahoma City could be a serious dynasty to deal with.
Presti has done a marvelous job of creating almost like 2 dynastic fields. So like you said, going from Seattle over to OKC, think about it. He had Durant, Harden, Westbrook. I mean, he had that whole cat. He had all 5 solid draft picks, solid, foundation. And then he started over again and built another foundation. Like, that is an impressive managerial job to me for anyone.
I totally agree. And what they were showing, and it's something that many teams don't do. They got to a point with the stars. They didn't get the success, and they got rid of players at their peak. So they got the most value for them. Took a little step back, but then took 2 steps forward. And for him to do that, and he did the same with Durant and them, why didn't you keep them? Honestly, would they have won? Maybe that was just not the right mix of guys, with Harden being the 6th player wanting to be a starter, and 1 ball. There was only 1 ball.
Well, I'll say, as a manager, your job is to bring in the most talent-rich team you can, right? Especially when you're new to the world in NBA and new city, all that stuff. So you did that. And then you learn the other lesson, like, hey, egos come into play, right, at the end of the day. And you had 5 egos that were never going to blend together. You knew that. So guess what? You said, okay, reset the clock, bring in this whole new core, and all these guys buy in. That's what's scary about this new OKC team.
That's it.
All of them buy in. There is not an ego on that team so far that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that may occur as things go on, because, once people get paid, and how come I'm not getting paid? But right now, it's about the team. It's not about how many points I get, how much time I get. It's, are we winning? And that's what you want to get. If you can get to that point with any type of team you build, you're going to be successful.
Yep. No, and again, we've seen this happen over the course of years. Warriors had it for a while, and then, obviously even to some degree, egos came into play there with Clay and everything else, and obviously the cap and everything. A lot of different factors come into play eventually down the road. But if OKC can milk this for, say, 2-3 year run for they're contending, them and the Nuggets both I feel are prime position teams in the West to last the next 5 to 10 years if they're managed well and correctly, because you've paid the right guys, or you're paying the right guys. You've got a great, set of like newer players coming onto your team, fitting the right roles. You've got the role players going. If you can figure out budget and cap going forward for the next 5 to 10 years, you got a hell of a talent pool to go from in two markets that are interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny how I feel like play has changed so much. It used to be where you had the West Coast style and the East Coast style. I don't know if that exists like that anymore. I feel like it's all the same style now.
It's similar. I mean, Boston plays very similar to what, OKC and the Nuggets have. It's just that everybody's got a different talent set, right? And different role players. So it's really finding the real set of role players. You and I have said this both. You've got to have an enforcer on a championship team.
You have to. Somebody's got to knock somebody down. Somebody's got to make someone fear coming to the paint and be able to distract or alter shots that are being put up from 10 feet.
You got to have an enforcer. You got to have a guy that can ready and pop a three anytime, so you can just kick out to him if you're the star player. You've got to have a point guard that can handle the ball, and you've got to have two stud players down low and up high. So as long as you've got those 5 pieces, and then more importantly, a 6th man, the 7th man that can plug and chug as you need to, you've got the makings of a championship squad. And that's where, like I said, the two teams that are at least in the finals, the Pacers are probably about 6-7 deep, give or take, but the OKC Thunder are 12.
Yeah. And I think, hey, Thibodeau, you listening? You better start thinking that way. I'm just saying. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't feel like Boston is dominant as everybody thought they would be, and they were sort of big to repeat and all of that stuff. I don't know if they have the team to. Well, I guess what it is this. You mentioned having an inside player. They got Porzingis. They got this other guy. I don't know his name. Not high caliber player, but serviceable. I just feel like they all want to shoot threes. And I get it. Steph Curry changed the game. Yeah, Steph Curry changed the game. My wife said it, and I've heard other people say it on how it's ruining the game. I don't know if it's ruining the game, but if you become one-dimensional and all you do is shoot threes, I get the math behind it. But if you're not shooting 40% from the three-point line, then it's going to hurt you.
And see, that's where I'm also picking OKC in 5, because frankly, the Pacers can't sustain their level of play playing the 3-ball either. We saw it in Game 5. They fell apart. The 2 games they won in New York, I mean, honestly, they were lucky outcomes. End of game situations where honestly the Knicks just didn't show up, and that's where Hallie came into town, and Hallie did his thing. Yeah.
You know what? I'm sorry. If I would have been on that team, and this is just me being a competitor, not that I'm a jerk or anything, but if I'd have been on that team and he threw that ball up and he did the Reggie Miller and they found out it was a 2 and we're going to overtime, he would have not been able to throw up another shot that whole game. Not that I would have, tried to take him out of the game and hurting him, but we would have been on him
all the time.
Like stank on shit. That's what would have been on him like.
Well, that's where I blame Thibodeau. I blame Thibodeau 100% for the Knicks' failure here, because honestly, they had a lot of good pieces on their team. Maybe not necessarily enough depth, but he overworked his players. I'm sorry to say, he overworked Brunson. He overworked all of his players across the board to where if they weren't hitting, and they didn't in Game 6, it was over, and we knew it. Cat showed up for a couple of games. It was great, but he didn't show up for 5 and 6. At the end of the day.
Well, I think he was okay with 5. Here's what I'm thinking with Cat. Cat gets enamored with the 3-pointer, and it's great when he's hitting it, but the dude is 7 feet tall and he's nowhere near the basket.
Exactly.
Jokic does that from time to time, but a lot of his work comes in the paint.
Yeah, he's strategic about it. He's always. And the other thing that Big Cat needs to do, and dish first kind of guy too.
Yeah, and the other thing that Cat does, and that's another thing I like about Jokic, but Cat, sometimes is out of control. Like when he puts his head down, he goes in like a bull, gets those offensive fouls. But even more importantly, he gets the stupid defensive fouls, pushing people in the back. Move your feet. Stop being lazy, because the refs are waiting on that, and they call you for it every time. And then you just kill your team because you're on the bench, and then they go on runs because they don't have that person inside stopping him from doing it. And yes, Robinson can do some work, but Robinson, as much as he could play defense, he's a liability on the floor once they do hack a shack, because this dude was throwing torpedoes at the rim. They were barely covering the rim when he shot the ball. So, you know, you need to be in there, and you need to think like that if you want your team to be successful.
No, and I think we're going to see a master class in game one of distribution of the ball by OKC. Honestly, I'm going to call out right now. I think it's going to be like a 20-point blowout in game one, because OKC's sitting there waiting in the water. Games in OKC, that crowd is going to be beyond electric, to say the least.
Yeah, and if they're playing like they've been playing, well, and if they're playing like they've been playing, I think exactly what you said, ball distribution. And that was another big failure, is that the ball always seemed to stop at Brunson, and it sort of stagnated. The offense was stagnant. Okay,
and you saw what Indiana did. As soon as he got the ball, you saw what Indiana did. As soon as Brunson got the ball, he had a man in his face. And I'm like, Thibodeau, all you got to do is change it up, man. Like,
and Josh Hart, you're a warrior. I know I keep going back to the Knicks. You're a warrior. Love how you play. Love the fact that you're not even close to the tallest player on the field, but you get your rebounds, you pass, you distribute the ball. You need to get an offensive game if you really want to take it to the next level, if you want to help your team. You know, there are bigger guys who can do what you do. And then if you can hit those threes, if you can actually nail down a mid-range jumper, you could have a game. You could be formidable, and the Knicks need that third scoring option. They don't really have that. All of the other guys were flashes in the pan. They do it one game and then they disappear. So but for OKC, I think you said it right. They're going to distribute the ball. Everybody's going to score. Everybody's bought into it. And Indiana, you might not have long.
No. Hallie ain't getting more than 20 points in the first game, in my opinion, because they're just going to stick him like crazy. He's going to be smelling Caruso's armpit all night, pretty much.
Well, and to Indiana's credit, more so than the Knicks, when that's why they beat them, is they have multiple options. I mean, there are guys who can actually score. They can drain the three. Even some of their backup players who come in to spell the starters, they actually have some gunyons. But can that be consistently done over a period of time? Can you attack the basket and get fouls and get to the free throw line and get those points? And the other part is, can you keep them off the offensive boards?
Yep. Agreed.
Because Holmgren, his thigh might be as big as these two fingers together. That's about right, I think. For Holmgren, his thigh and his calf is one finger.
Yeah.
But the dude is playing. He's got hops, he springs, he's durable. You know, and they can throw various things at you, and you can't stop them. It's just hard to stop them.
100% agree. Now, like I say, it'll be interesting to see how the NBA Finals pan out, but I think this is OKC's to lose at the end of the day, like we've said here. Basically, it's not going to be much. Now, I think Indiana will, take either game 3 or 4 when it comes back to Indiana, just because of the hometown crowd, the feel, and everything else. And OKC might take a break for one night. I don't see a sweep. Yeah, I just don't see a sweep, but I see a 5-game series, and that's about it at this point.
Yeah, I'm an underdog guy. Plus, I'm also trying to hang on to the fact that we're about to go into what I think of as like the low end of sports. When it gets to the summer, once hockey and basketball finish their playoffs, all you have are baseball all day long, 162 games, boring as stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, I like baseball, but
well, this year we have a small alternative, and we'll get to this one in a couple weeks. So starting on the 14th, it's the FIFA Club World Championships here in the United States.
Okay, now that's true. So I'd like to watch that. So that'll be good.
And there was a final this past weekend. PSG, shout out to you, blowout, great game.
Right. And we were talking about that. How does it happen that in the Champions League final, it's a 5-0 result? That's unheard of. That's unheard of.
And for the betting public, there was almost an even keel line walking into that game. That's what's scary. PSG just whipped the shit out of them.
Whipped them. You don't see that often.
And the real kicker, and this came out in the post-game interviews, for many years, PSG had mounted on, star power. You had the Mbappes. You had the, everybody else.
I mentioned that because I
Yeah, no. So, I mean, it was impressive to see the young talent come through, Dembele and the crew. I mean, this was just awesome to watch.
And a domination of unlike any other. And that kind of, in soccer, especially, you might see it in hockey. You will not see that in soccer normally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, speaking of hockey, You got a rematch. Edmonton and Florida, America versus Canada, as I like to call it. And frankly, the Americans have been dominating for a little while.
And Florida, not what you would think of from
Minnesota.
a hockey town perspective.
Yeah, we're not talking Minnesota, Boston, Chicago. We're talking
Right.
Florida.
Florida. And they're going to win it again. Connor McDavid, you're great, but you're not Gretzky. And I'm sorry,
right.
I think Edmonton's going down again.
Yep, I think so too. I mean, I expect great hockey because honestly, the NHL playoffs again are a spectacle to watch. No matter what the team, no matter what your fandom is, it is just cool to watch playoff hockey. So we're in for a treat, I think, starting tomorrow night on that one. I'm picking Florida Panthers. I think you're picking Florida Panthers.
Me too.
We'll see if it goes 5 or 6. It'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of curious to see the side story if it evolves of some kind of like politics in play, America versus Canada. Hey, we just beat you in your national sport.
The funny thing is, we'll beat you in the NHL, but when it comes to the national teams playing, I got Canada every time.
Yeah,
I want America to win, but we just can't seem to do it. Well,
and classically, I would say even for the FIFA Club World Cup, I'm not picking any American squad to do any kind of damage there. It's going to be all the European squads that are going to be, you're going to be in for a treat for good soccer, obviously, around the country. But it'll be kind of cool to watch that. It'll be our pre-run to next year, which is the World Cup, honestly.
Well, yeah, and actually, you mentioned that. That's what I was saying about the summer. So, yeah, we have baseball. Yes, we do have some soccer. We do have the majors in golf and in tennis. But, man, it's so tough. And I was talking to someone on the golf course, and they were saying, at least football will be coming in August. And it's like, but then our summer's over. I'm not trying to rush to get the summer over,
July is a tough month. Yeah, July is a tough month. I mean, it's a lot of baseball and all that and a little bit of slower grind. Don't get me wrong. But, it'd be nice to have some other type of event in there. If basketball did like a FIBA World Basketball, it'd be kind of cool. Or if there were other things going on, it'd be more fun.
If that other football league actually had any real relevance, it would actually be something to see football over the summer, but it's not. The level of play is just not the same. It's just I love football. Wish we could have it all year round, but I'm talking NFL style football, not the Boston Marauders against the
That'll take me the whole other direction. Supposedly for next year for the Olympics, we're supposed to have flag football. You know what? Let's start a flag football league and let's see how that's going to play out this year. That would be nice to kind of see.
Maybe.
But it has to have NFL stars. I want to see Tyreek Hill run a 4.
Yeah, but what is the thrill of football? Is it
tackling? I mean,
pulling the flag off, or that when you go over the middle, you get decapitated? I'm not saying that in a violent way, just in the fact that it's a physical sport. You like to see the hits. You like to see the blocking and people doing that. Flag football doesn't do it for me.
Okay, so here's my question. I haven't looked into this bit deep enough, probably knowing that we're going to have this in the Olympics. How does that work in flag football? Let's say I run a cross check and a guy running a route in flag football and take him out before he can, before he's trying to go through my route. Is that a foul? Like, how does that work?
I don't know. I know when I played flag football, we used to be a little physical and test the refs. And they would let us play a little physical. I can't say that I've seen that on the flag football I've seen on TV. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. It would be nice if there was a little bit more of a physical nature to it.
I'd like to see it in action before we, get thrown into the waters of the Olympics and be like, here's flag football.
Yeah,
okay, great.
Exactly. I agree with you. Because if it just becomes like a 7-on-7 practice where people are just running routes and they're constantly scoring, I don't think that's not a great thing to watch.
No. I want to see a little bit of physical play there, see how it comes into play. How much contact you're allowed, or more importantly, I'd like to see like somebody run a pick on somebody, check them out.
Oh, you gotta get people fighting in flag football.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, I gotta say this before we close this out. A trend that I've been noticing and actually experienced a little bit of it this weekend playing golf. Are we becoming a golf is supposed to be one of these, places where you escape. You're able to play, you're out with the flora and the fauna, beautiful day, nice walk in the park. used to say that I'd meet nice people at the golf courses, and it's generally still true. But I almost saw a fight happen.
Mhm.
I've been seeing a lot more fighting videos. I'm hearing a lot more swearing and cursing at
Mhm.
different foursomes at each other. Where are we as a people where you can't even go out and play golf and it becomes something that you could, like the one guy got his nose broken and all of this stuff? It's like, when did we become that? And why?
Good question. Good question, because sometimes we question whether some sports are becoming passive. But funny enough, golf of all things becoming, violent, which is ridiculous. When are people taking things more personally than they need to, whether it's for sport or not? It's a little ridiculous right now, in my opinion. It used to be where sport was done as a form of competitive nature, but it's done in fun, right?
Right. Still shake
And
hands,
now
still
it
love
seems
it kind
like,
of thing.
yeah. And now it seems to have taken on this other layer of, okay, I get we live in a competitive society, but sometimes we're taking out our personal stresses into this thing that we used to have fun with, which is really the worst thing that could happen.
Well, and also, and I get it. I'm a pace player, a rhythm player. I hate to hit a shot and then have to wait 5 minutes. Hate to hit a shot, wait 5 minutes. I agree with that. But is that worth fighting over? Is that worth all of this that I've been seeing? And even that other day, they were about to go to blows,
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding me? This is golf.
Yep.
And I feel like it's just the way the world is now. Everybody, it's like, if I don't like what you're doing, I want to get physical. I want to become violent. I want to show you in a way that, I can make my will be the thing that should be listened to versus reason and morals and principles. Those things are out the window now. Nobody has any patience for anything, and nobody's willing to, I don't know, like, let things just go because it's not serious enough. Every little thing becomes so serious where people are, well, why did they get into a fight? Because the one person stepped in front of the other person. Well, they didn't touch him, right? They didn't do anything to him, right? Nothing really happened, but you got into a fight over that.
I think it's. I'm going to make an assumption here, assume it's just personal stress is spilling over to people, and that's where honestly there needs to be a line drawn of better control your emotions and stuff like that. We always look for mental health, obviously, but at the same time, don't use that as a way to take out your aggression against someone. I understand if you want to take it out on something in a sport, baseball, basketball, football, you want to punt harder, kick harder, hit whatever, go to a kickboxing match, whatever, do that on your own time. But when it comes to things like a social sport, you never want to do that in front of people, or never need to do that to people. It's not your prerogative, and it's not your place. Keep your things in check. Yeah.
There should be a certain decorum we, use in all activities, not just at work because you feel like you should, somebody's watching you and there's a penalty to pay. It should be like that all the time. Isn't that what civilized human beings are? What's civilized part of human being?
If there's one adage I learned, whether it was sport, academics, things of that nature, and I appreciate some of my old high school and middle school teachers for this, is do anything you do with class.
Always.
And class and respect, I think, are the two words to best epitomize that.
Yep.
You represent yourself in the most positive way and represent everyone else in the most positive way.
And that's it. And it's not just the respect for the sport, it's respect for the people within the sport that are playing it. And if you're out at a golf course, we're all playing it. And there are different levels of golfers. And maybe it's not the person in front of you that's slowing the group down. Maybe it's 5 groups ahead of you that's slowing it down, but you're blaming the person in front of you. And they have no control over that.
Yep.
And
that brings up another good point. Always be the solution. Don't be the person that just sits there and points fingers. Bring positive solutions.
A lot of that. Yeah, have the conversation around, how do I make this better versus this is aggravating me and I want to show it to someone.
Right.
Let's have that attitude. Maybe we can make the world at least a little bit better.
Yep. On that note, I think that's a good ending piece for this week, to say the least. Leave things positive as much as possible. And like I said, we've covered a whole gamut of sports today that are going on. Appreciate them this week because we got the start of everything, including the playoffs, the tennis, and everything else going on. We'll try to recap it as we go along here this week or next. But in the meantime, like my colleague here said, try to be a positive force in the world in the meantime.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
It's what the world around us is what we put into it. So be the solution. Don't be the problem, as my partner said. Think that way. Have a moment before you act. Have a moment of reflection, and say, does this make sense? Are my actions aligned with what's going on here? And how can I make this better? And maybe there you need to, be, a little aggressive at times, but do we have to be violent? Let's try to pull that part out of our nature. And maybe we can be a little bit better as a race of people.
Absolutely.
So let's do that.
Yep, absolutely. On that note, we shall be back. We will recap some of the fun stuff that we've done here and see how far they are in the playoffs and such. But until then, I say take care.
All right. Be well, everybody. Peace to you. Thanks, partner.